All right, welcome to the April 30th, 2024 Aries Cloud Agent Python user group meeting. Few things to talk about. Hopefully we've got everyone we need on the call. It's like IIW, the right people are here. Release planning, we got 0.12.1 almost ready to go, I think. PR merges to come, so we'll go over a little bit of the PRs. The big thing I'm hoping we're going to be discussing is adding support in ACA-Pug for DIDCOM v2, and then any sort of open discussion to be had. We are recording the call. It'll be posted later. A reminder that this is a Linux Foundation and Hyperledger Foundation meeting. So the Linux Foundation antitrust policy is in effect, as is the Hyperledger Code of Conduct. This one can go. Any introductions? So for anyone new to the call that wants to introduce themselves and why you're interested in being here, please do so. And any announcements and anything to add to the agenda, let me know. Patrick.
Yeah, so yesterday I was experimenting with the JSON LD credential and just wanted maybe to discuss the ED 25519 signature 2020 verification. I believe it's not quite right, so I don't know if someone here was involved in this, and I believe we should change the verification.
Okay.
It's the 2020 version specifically, not the 2018.
Okay. All right. Okay. As far as the agenda goes, I don't see Daniel here. Colton Shar, are you able to talk to the DIDCOM v2 stuff?
It would be me and Micah, and Micah's going to start off with that.
Okay, awesome, good. Okay, well, we'll get started on the earlier stuff. I think that'll go fairly quickly. I thought I'd updated these notes yesterday. This is weird. Release 0.12.1 RC1 is available. Hopefully people are testing it out. I know Lucas on the BC Gov side had looked at things. As far as I know, everything is looking good. Jamie, anyone else, has anyone seen anything that would delay us putting out the 0.12.1 final?
I don't think so.
Okay.
But I also thought that about 12.0. So,
So did I. I think we're there. Let me jump over. This is the one issue, but I think I was hoping Ian was going to be able to was here, and I don't see him. Ian, are you here? No. On this issue with holder did, and it seemed to be specific to the code for W3C VCDM. So hopefully that's there. Ian's looking at this. He thinks it's from the new credential request, so there's no impact. Basically what I think happened is they copied some code, that code, and then changed it. That code got changed, the underlying code, to remove this problem, because I think we dealt with this problem already in the release, or this issue, and theirs didn't catch up. So that's what I think happened. I would have liked to talk to Ian, but I will do so. Oh, Ian is here. Ian, any comments on, are you certain this is a limited to the work that What's Cooking is doing?
I just this very second joined.
Mm-hmm.
So
okay.
Yeah.
So this is the issue from yesterday that came up in the yeah.
Yeah, I'm about 99% sure it's just with the issue with the what's cooking stuff. Because
Okay.
there is a reference in one of the new schemas to indie did for
Okay.
validation. And I do recall that we fixed this problem
Exactly. Yeah.
somewhere else before. So I think that's the only case. I took a quick look around. I didn't see any other cause for this error.
Okay, good. Okay. We have to fix this spelling, Jamie, for sure. We're not gonna do this update as part of this release. The PyDid update is same. We're not doing that. We're not dropping the Indie SDK. So yeah, there are no open PRs that would go into the 0.12.1 release. So I think we're set to go on that. So barring anything that comes up today, I think end of day, I'll get the 0.12.1 release completed and published. And then starting tomorrow, likely we'll consider moving to creating the next release of 1.0, the next candidate release. For those not familiar, and a reminder to those that may have forgotten, we did a few release candidate 1.0 quite a while ago, but then decided not to go with that for various bad reasons. Now there's no reason not to, and so we'll put that in. My strategy, and I'd like to think about this I'd like us to think about it over the next 2 weeks, is that we don't, other than the PRs that are in here, and especially the dropping the SDK and the work that Jamie's done, and this one, is the 1.0 release, and that we can go forward with just that. So that's my expectation, but we'll talk about it again in 2 weeks to have a more thorough discussion. As I say, I said this last time or last week, at the maintainers call last week, I would like to go through issues again, to close off a pile, because there's, far too many that are addressed in various ways, support questions and so on, that are no longer relevant, and to see if there's anything that really should be in the 1.0 release. All right. Any other feedback on the 0.12.1 and the release plan for 1.0? All right. Well, with that, Micah, I assume I should stop sharing. And so the topic here is DIDCOM V2 support, getting upgrading or enabling both V1 and V2 support in ACA-Pug.
Yeah, so let me go ahead and share my screen. Cool. Is that working?
Yep, perfect.
Cool. So I'm just going to go ahead and paste that into the chat. This is the diff of what we've started on in ACA-Pug. We are kind of just doing a quick and dirty investigation into what needs to happen to be able to handle DIDCOM v2 messages. We're currently at a state where we can unpack a DIDCOM v2 message, but we're not actually doing any processing beyond that. So I just wanted to go through this a little bit. We are binding some things from a new library that is DIDCOM messaging Python. I'll let Colton talk about that a little bit more later. But it's a pretty lightweight toolbox that has a lot of features that are useful for handling DIDCOM v2 messages and whatnot. So we're getting a lot of that set up in the context here. We have some adapters that are sort of matching stuff between the DIDCOM messaging Python expectations and ACA-Pug's expectations in terms of DID resolvers and secrets managers. So that's some of what's happening here. And then in the pack format, we have a new pack wire format, currently titled V2 for DIDCOM V2 messages. All that's implemented on this class is the parse message currently, and like I said, we're not actually returning anything to parse the message. But here is where we're taking in the raw DIDCOM V2 messages, and we're using some of the DIDCOM messaging stuff to unpack that message. And currently we're just unpacking it and logging it out to the logs. I'll be working on actually passing it back up the stack and doing some actual message handling with that here soon. But yeah, so that's the gist of what we have currently. It's definitely not a particularly clean implementation currently. We're gonna work on cleaning that up for sure before we make any PRs. But we're just kind of getting to a proof of concept stage of handling DIDCOM V2 messages. And here's some more. We have to do some stuff with the keys, key management stuff for resolution. But yeah, that's where things currently stand.
So, a quick question. So, there's going to be two types of messages, it seems to me, or two classes of messages. One is where the existing handlers can directly handle a message, and that would be presumably just reformatting the message so that it's in a neutral V1 and V2 state. And then a second would be where it's explicitly a new protocol that is a V2 only protocol. Is that right?
Yeah, in theory, that should be the case. We haven't talked a lot about how we're gonna split that up.
Okay.
It may be that it's simply easier to just have a split between DIDCOM V1 messages and DIDCOM V2 messages, even if there could in theory be overlap in the handlers.
Okay.
But that's not something we've talked about extensively yet. But that is something to keep in mind.
Yeah, I imagine the very tricky part is where do you plug this in? Because in theory, it's just the lowest level of the, pack wire message, unpack wire message. But in practice, it probably goes higher up the stack than that.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, in practice it affects a lot more because if you look at a lot of the protocols are kind of, for the different handlers, they're dependent on how the DIDCOM V1 messages are formatted rather than just being agnostic to the version.
Yeah, and that's where I was thinking that, and again, I haven't understood this well enough, but Sam's talked about it a lot, is that there's messages, and I think he basically said anything without attachments can more or less go through, and anything with attachments you need, can be the same protocol, whether on V1 or V2, but but anything with attachments winds up having to have a new major version of the protocol, which essentially in our history has meant you just start by making a copy of the previous major version and updating it independently so the two can operate independently.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
then we've
so
got
we'll-
the other. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, that's definitely something that we'll keep in mind as we get further along in the actually handling the message and not just unpacking it. But
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's kind of a brief overview of what we've done. I'll go ahead and pass it off to Colton to talk about that new library that we're using a little bit.
Give me just a sec, pulling up one last thing. Okay. Share screen. That looks like the right screen. All right, can you guys see this GitHub project here? Didcom messaging Python?
Yes.
Yep.
All right, perfect. So Didcom messaging Python, because Micah went ahead and said I talk about this a bit later. This is a lightweight library in a sense that allows us to interact with Didcom. It is also modular in the sense that we have routing service to figure out things like forwarding messages, packaging service to figure out how messages are packed, a crypto service that you can swap out, same with secrets manager and did resolver, so you can have a bunch of different resolvers. Just going into the project real quick. So for crypto, for instance, we have different backends. We have ASCAR, same Aries ASCAR that we're using in the Aries project. We also have auth-lib here, which is based off of Python's, what is it? Auth-lib Jose library. And both of those, they're interchangeable, but you can use either one. Resolvers, right now we just have peer 2 did peer 2 and did peer 4 resolvers, as well as did web resolver in here. But it is completely optional as to whether or not people use those. And in fact, we even have a prefix resolver that you can set up where you basically say, if the did starts with such and such prefix, use whichever resolver that you happen to need. So because we're using ASCAR, it's all the same stuff as Aries that I mentioned, or even ACA-Pug. Same underlying code base for encryption there. And we have been using this, the Didcom messaging Python library internally at Indicio. It is very well tested from my perspective, at least. And one of the things that we've been working on as well is, more specifically right here, this quickstart.py file, which gives you a quick get up and going with working with the library. So instead of worrying about how do I generate keys, for instance, I just generate, or how do I generate a did? I just call this generate did method. Instead of worrying about all the setup here, we can just, say set up the defaults, which will get all that set up. Instead of worrying about sending messages or even establishing connection to a mediator or with WebSockets, all that, we've got a lot of those things already pre-baked in here to make it easier for other developers to get started with Didcom v2. And while we won't be using the quick start here with ACA-Pug, because we'll be diving into actually setting things up ourselves, having a quick start like this allows new developers to, where was it? Here we go. I have this minimal example here. In under 50 lines of code, I actually went ahead and counted earlier. I took out all the comments and white space. It was down to 25 lines. I could send and receive DIDCOM messages. This allows, developers to build applications that are outside of ACA-Pug. And since it's all communicating DIDCOM, it allows them to communicate with ACA-Pug, creating a more interoperable ecosystem. And we've shown this off in the past, the DIDCOM demo here.
Yeah.
I'm not going to dive too much into this because that's not what this is about, but a lot of the stuff that I've shown off using the DIDCOM demo in the past, when I'm connecting to, say, for instance, a Raspberry Pi that I have, I'm able to, and I can just try connecting to it real quick. I don't know if it's online or not. But the underlying script for, yeah, it must not be online. But the underlying script that I was trying to connect to here, it's able to respond back, and it's all running using the DIDCOM messaging Python library. In fact, this is the script here. And I can just dive in here real quick, and we can see that I'm pulling what I need out of this library and then using it how I need to use it for that particular use case. I think that's all. Oh, there is one other thing I did want to mention. In terms of the interoperability, the web DIDCOM demo here is built using the SICPA DIDCOM Rust library under the hood. And the fact that we're able to work with the demo and the SICPA library here, that is one of the things that we've used to test and ensure that, we are able to interop and talk DIDCOM v2. With that being said, to test out the code that Micah showed off a bit earlier, I created this DIDCOM v2 test util library, which does utilize the same exact, and I'll post this in chat. Oh, and Daniel mentioned here, critically, it's not necessary to use the resolver built into the library. Aries ACA-Pug, of course, already implements a resolver, and that's getting reused in our POC so far.
Okay.
So in this test script that I have here, we're running ACA-Pug behind the scenes, and once ACA-Pug is up and running, we are building, we're requesting a new did peer to did from ACA-Pug, and then we get the result of that did, and we ensure that we have a did. And once we do, we construct a basic message just saying hello world in this case, and we send that message to the did peer to did, which happens to be ACA-Pug, and we try to print out any form of response that we get back. With that being said, with this example code here being shown, I actually have the repo pulled down. We're using Docker Compose, and if I do Docker Compose up, we see that ACA-Pug starts up, and once the heartbeat detects that ACA-Pug is alive and running, we can see that the test util starts running. And while it did crash here, we've got a message from ACA-Pug saying that server got itself in trouble. that is expected in our POC. But we can see at the start, where was it?
Down a little bit.
Yeah. I was trying to show these logs here. So we've got
Gotcha.
our did from the test util. And after we get our did, we retrieve the agent did. And then we get the agent did, which here's that did peer 2 that we got from ACA-Pug, and we try to prepare to send a new message to the ACA-Pug agent, which is just that hello world example that I mentioned earlier. And we can see we have a couple of debug messages in here. And the important one to call out is this debug message JSON, where we have an unpack result, type didconf.org basic message 2.0, body content hello world, from our did address, language English to ACA-Pug.
Okay, so that's ACA-Pug receiving a didcom message, unpacking it, and then displaying it on the screen.
Exactly. Yep.
Awesome.
That is exactly what it is.
Yeah. And so, and as I say, in theory, reformatting that now, sending back, packing and sending a V2 message back, but processing that becomes, okay, this message type has to be converted. Okay, got it. Very cool.
Yeah, and I just want to, before handing over the screen share again, pull up the code that Micah showed earlier. And where was it? Debug. So this method parse message here is supposed to return a tuple of a dictionary and message receipt, but at the moment we are just logging via debug messages the JSON, and we are not returning anything. And that is why
The server
ACA-Pug
happens.
is erroring here, saying that we got a none type object and we couldn't unpack it.
Yeah. I'm sitting here thinking, how do we help? We'll have to think about what the next steps are to collaborate on how to get this moved along. We've got the classic problems. You've got to know what to send out, but I think the did exchange, establishing a connection is necessary. Anyway, I'm just thinking too much. Patrick, go ahead.
I was just curious, the direction the integration of didcom v2 will take. Will it move towards a plugin approach, or will it be just added to the core of ACA-Pug?
I think the quick answer to that is to be determined. I don't know if Daniel or Colton or Micah, if you have any other comments on that.
I think the direction we're headed right now, it would be difficult to make it a plugin style right now, because we're ending up needing to touch pretty core elements of the message processing pipeline, which haven't previously been pluggable components within ACA-Pug. So there might be, a point of critical mass where we get enough changes into the ACA-Pug core that we can then subsequently make it a plugin, but that's not really been a priority, I think, right now, and not something we've been thinking too deeply about yet. So
yeah, I think the biggest thing is to see if we can, again, I'm just speculating, but keep it relatively low level. That question of how far up on the stack do you go? Do you have to go to be able to do this? The thing that throws me off, I realize, is did exchange doesn't really exist in V2. But are there still out of band messages and well there still would be out of band messages sent, and is there a way to say respond with V1 or V2, whichever you want?
So part of the out of band 1.1 includes, I think, an accept field.
Right. And that's the thing.
Yeah, and so you'd be able to say did conversion type there with an out of band. Out of band also, the primary goal of it is to communicate like the initial connection establishment information. In the past, we've done that with inline objects. More recently, in the ACA-Pug world, we're now doing that with DidPeer 2 and 4. And the document resolved from that DidPeer 2 or 4 can also include an accept. The word I want to keep on using is header, but it's not a header. It's an attribute on the service for the DidCom service that can also say DidCom v1 or v2 inside of it.
Okay.
Also kind of comes back to that same question that we've been discussing in a few different venues of like the service type that gets used. We'd be including both the original did-communication service type as well as the DidCom messaging service type within our did documents. So yeah. So in terms of direction, where we're headed next here, I think it's the demo is cool, and I'm glad we're to the point where we're able to unpack. There are a number of things that needed to be resolved to get to that point, but I think it's pretty clear that we're definitely in early phases, and we're kind of in the breaking stuff phase of the work right now. We're hoping to spend some time messing with the internals of ACA-Pug so we can help determine what the overall plan needs to be, and start making more educated recommendations about what direction we should go with the implementation. I think one of the next things that we're going to be tackling will be outlining, the base message class for DidCom v2 messages. So analogous to our current agent message class that is structured to accept a DidCom v1 message, we need an analogous structure in the DidCom v2. From there, updating the dispatcher to be able to deserialize those values into the correct classes and stuff. So those sorts of things, now that we've gotten some of the basic plumbing taken care of. Patrick?
Cool.
While being aware of what you just said, this is very early stage. Is this going to replace DidCom v1, or is it going to be a different startup option, or can they both sort of exist together?
Yeah, the plan is for them to coexist.
Okay.
Yeah,
I believe the overall end goal is to have DidCom v2 sort of replace v1 just because it's got some newer things in it. But both protocols can interop at the same time, and when we implement it in ACA-Pug, we are aiming to have them both be within ACA-Pug, both be available at the same time.
Yep.
I was going to answer that, and then I realized it would be a hell of a lot better if I let you answer that. So that, and then I crossed my fingers that you gave. Yeah, I mean, it really is just in connection establishment. Once you've got the establishment, you're either running v1 or v2. I suppose there is the case of, we want to upgrade from v1 to v2. But anyway, and to be figured out.
Technically speaking, in the lower level that all this is happening, even down to like right when you're unpacking the message after you decrypt it, we are able to, at that point in time, determine if the message is DidCom v1 or DidCom v2.
Yeah. So it doesn't even have to be on a connection basis, you're saying?
No, it doesn't necessarily have to be. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. There's some
that is interesting.
There's a lot of questions to answer, I think, as we go forward. So we've got some experience with implementing agents that support both v1 and v2. And for the protocols implemented by the agents that we've worked on, it made more sense for us to have separate handlers for the v1 versions of the protocol and the v2 versions of the protocol.
Okay.
So we've kind of skirted around the question of what does it look like to have a mechanical conversion from one to the other in order for a handler that was designed for one or the other to handle that message. So I don't really know what that looks like yet. I think in theory it's possible. I think Sam would say that it's possible, depending on the protocol in question, of course, and its dependence on things like attachments and stuff.
Yeah.
But I think in practice we're just gonna have to try it out and see what happens. And
Yeah.
it might be that we take a stronger stance and say it's still a little impractical for us to combine these into a single handler, so we're just gonna keep them separate or something like that. So
I mean, the V1 are so well established and not likely to change that
yeah.
there is a fairly strong basis to just say, I'm going to write a bespoke converter that, you know, references item names hard coded in and maps them across. Who knows?
Yeah.
And then anything new gets written as V2, so you don't even think about it. They get used in V2 and that's it. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The level of overlap between DIDCOM v2 implementations of certain protocols and the corresponding DIDCOM v1 versions of the same protocols, there tend to be different versions implemented for the different DIDCOM versions. And so even just accepting a message type of a particular version is a pretty strong indicator of which DIDCOM version it was likely received with. So it's that might be another clean way for us to separate that and not have to worry about
Switching between them.
right.
Yep.
Yeah.
Awesome. Any other questions from anyone on that? That was excellent. Okay. Patrick, do you want to go over this one? And I'll take notes. I'll update. Oh, one more thing. I'll grab the comments in there, the links, add them to the agenda and add my own notes on these. And of course the recording is available as well. So more information on that.
I have thrown the links under our bullet point, so you probably just have to reload
Oh, I
your
see.
page.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
links
got
are
it.
there.
Oh, good. Good. Thank you. Okay, Patrick, over to you.
Yeah, so this is just yesterday I noticed playing with DidWeb and the ED25519 2020 signature method. So it is in ACA-Pug, you can issue these credentials, but when verifying that type of proof, it's still looking for the same public key format as the 2018 signature suite. So the 2020 introduced multi-base public signature, and then when I try to verify it, it's clearly still looking for public key base 58. There's a link here for the crypto suite. So it's just the way that ACA-Pug needs to find the public key. It's a slightly different decoding algorithm, and currently providing a VC that's been signed with ED Signature 2020 to the verify endpoint. It's not looking for the right key. So I don't know if someone that worked on this is here on the call. Otherwise, I'll just have a look.
Well, Patrick, would I assume that's ASCAR?
I'm not too sure.
I think it's a layer up from ASCAR still, the decoding.
Okay.
Yeah. ASCAR just
Okay.
accepts the public bytes. So it's something happening inside of ACA-Pug.
Okay. This doesn't sound good. But I'm guessing this.
Yeah.
We need to get an issue in. Yes, we can get someone looking at it. I don't think this is a 0.12.1 issue, or do you think it's that urgent?
Not really. So this is really like specifically using DidWeb. I think with DidKey it probably works because the DidKey does use
Exactly.
ED verification 2018. And I'm not like the spec says that, you know, the verification key type should match the 2020. You know, at the end of the day, you're getting the same public key. It's just how you get it that's different.
It's how you get it, and it's just not it's decoding the public key incorrectly.
Well, it's looking for the wrong key in the document. Like it's specifically looking for the public key base 58, where it should look for public key multi-base. and then decode it according to the multi-base sort of identifier.
So I didn't think it did that, but I'm looking at it now and I see that the from verification method on our wallet key pair class is indeed just looking in that public key base 58. So we're signing it correctly and putting it into a multi-base value, but we're just not verifying correctly.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Well, yeah, it's so I did the part of encrypting the multi-base for this key for my did web. So it would be about just doing the reverse, decrypting
Yeah.
it. So you need to there's like a little special header for the this type of key you need to add to the public key bytes. But yeah, should be it's a few lines.
Okay. Well, obviously, first thing is get the issue in. Daniel, looks like you've got a full handle on what's going on.
Yeah, I think I understand what's happening here. Yeah.
Okay.
But we have logic elsewhere in ACA-Pug that handles the two different possibilities of key material
does it-
location and encoding. So it's just a matter of making sure that we're
Does it get
consistently
to
doing
that function after it looked at the type of the verification method, or it just goes
There
just results
is.
the ID and goes in there?
I can paste another link to some more lines here in a second.
Okay.
But yeah, I think next steps here is we open an issue and we can discuss more of the
Right.
technicals here
Good.
for sure.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, there's the key type here. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think just having a little check on the key type and then looking for public key base 58 or awesome.
Patrick, do you want to run with it?
Yeah. I'll open an issue and do a PR. So
Yes.
and
Excellent.
Daniel can review. Is that right?
I love it when we get real time debugging going on in the middle of a conference call. Good stuff. Okay. Any other topics people want to raise? We have a few minutes. Patrick.
VCDM 2.0. I don't
Okay.
know. I believe we could get a minimal version going with the ED2 5519 2020 data integrity proof, which is already there. From what I understand, the biggest difference is just to change the first item of the context and removing the need for the issuance date. I think these are the major changes, but I'm curious how this should be included, specifically with the new VCDI attachment format that was proposed at Aries.
Yeah.
I wanted to discuss this format the last Aries call, but I believe tomorrow we'll have the
Tomorrow
time.
we'll be talking about it. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I don't know what the thought is around this, and maybe Daniel, I'd be curious your opinion. So currently, like the DIDCOM issuance protocol, I think currently it's the JSON LD attachment that the goal is to replace with VCDI attachment, or maybe they will coexist. But I thought the attachment was meant to supersede the previous one. So I'm wondering if we should still share that same component for the what I refer to as the VC API issuance and verification route, or if they should diverge. I don't know how closely they should be tied. I don't know if you have thoughts on that. I was thinking of, I know at the beginning you mentioned the VC API could be made into a plugin, which I'm kind of reconsidering might be a good idea. And it could have its own sort of issuing ways of issuing, or how close together should the link be between the DIDCOM issue credential v2 issuance protocol for WDC credential and just the issue endpoint?
Yeah. So I think the only strong opinions I have is that we probably will have to maintain backwards compatibility with the JSON-LD attachment format for the foreseeable future.
Yeah.
So whatever we do, we're going to have to retain more or less the current implementation of that. So whether it makes sense to start refactoring the existing code or to just create a new component and start building fresh from there without any of the baggage that was associated with that. That I'm not sure I have too strong of feelings on that. It seems like starting fresh might be wise given the fact that there's different assumptions at play for the VCDI attachment format versus the JSON-LD detail attachment format.
Yeah, like I feel the VCDI attachment is strongly catered towards holder binding and its design, which makes sense because it's to make room for the uncreds VCDI. I was personally a bit unsure if like removing the sort of credential options kind of root level of the payload is a good idea because it seems like you're just removing the options fields and just throwing all the options at the root layer of the request. I was unsure why we couldn't. I believe because it was inspired on the OIDC for VC issuance, and I'm just wondering if we should just add another options for the binding method. But this I'll probably discuss it tomorrow.
Yeah, let's discuss it tomorrow. I certainly don't have enough, and I planned on reading up on it today, so I'm ready for tomorrow's discussion.
Yeah, because I just wanted like something that's being worked on right now on the VC API group. So they are specing the workflows, and I would like to spec a DIDCOM workflow
Okay.
based on ACA-Pug. So because a lot of the questions were that, well, the VC API doesn't do like these sort of exchanges, and I'd like to spec a specific workflow to exchange a credential through DIDCOM and use ACA-Pug as the implementation. So there's like request open and try to keep it as similar as possible. If it satisfies both needs when it comes to the type of request you input.
Mm-hmm. Sorry, I'll just quickly write that down. Okay. Let's leave that for tomorrow. Any other topics to go over? Sounds good. All right. Excellent. Much appreciated. Good work. Colton, Micah, and team. Good stuff on the V2 stuff. And let's get that bug on JSON LD. We've got 0.12.1 ready to go. And we will see you in a couple of weeks and online. Have a great one, folks. See ya.
Thanks, Steven. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.
Thanks all. Bye.
Thank you.